Nangamso, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Seipati. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great, man. So lovely meeting you at long last.
I know. Lovely meeting you too. And thank you for this opportunity. My goodness.
You are more than welcome. You really are more than welcome. And on that note, I want to congratulate you on being one of the 32 finalists for the inaugural Southern African Women in Leadership Awards. I am really honored to have such a trailblazer as yourself amongst these 32 phenomenal trailblazers that we're honoring this year. So Nangamso, for the purpose of this interview, this is my colleague and co-pilot, Dr. Andy Brough from the Brough Leadership Institute. He will be doing the majority of the interview, the serious part. My job is to welcome you and really say that I congratulate you that I'm quite honored myself because you are one of the trailblazers that I've followed for almost 2 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And I do see the work that you do. I am exceptionally proud of you. And yeah, so before we hand over to Andy, what would you tell the viewers about Nangamso? Who is she and why is she here? What earned her a seat at this table?
I consider myself an investment banker. I'm a qualified chartered banker. However, I consider myself an investor activist, particularly for sustainable development. I'm very passionate about development especially for the African continent. And my biggest passion is in the transport space. I am a big believer in how women-centric transport can open up opportunities for women and fast-track the development of the economy as a whole. So I grew up in Port Elizabeth. I moved to Gauteng in 2005. I studied, my background is management accounting. I studied BCom in management accounting, and then I majored in, as I advanced with my studies, I majored in financial management. Then I got passionate about banking. That's when I then pursued a chartered banker qualification, which I recently qualified about 2 years ago. Then that also drew a lot of attention because we don't have a lot of chartered bankers in the country. And it drew a lot of attention from people in trying to understand what is it about the career that I've chosen. And the interesting thing about the career that I've chosen is that I want to use banking for the advancement of the general population. Whereas one would look for opportunities in career growth opportunities in a banking environment, in a traditional banking environment, whereas I would like to apply that in a more developmental area. So my biggest vision is to transform the transport industry and make it a women-centric transport industry. And what do I mean by that? There's 3 things that I focus on when I think about those. I think about a 16-year-old girl who has a vision, but who does not have the transport system that moves her along towards her goals as she navigates her very active career path between 16 and 36. And this is purely because how the transport is designed, it's not accommodating the needs and the travel patterns of women. Safety issues, accessibility issues are big issues for women. And this then, in my view, it does hinder and impact on the career choices or job choices that women make on the basis of their ability to access those. And physical access is what I'm talking about. We all have opportunities, but for us to actually physically be able to take that job, it requires that you are able to move from one point to the next point. So those are the things that I have to, that drive my passion with the work that I do at the Development Bank of Southern Africa. I say to myself, what is it that I contribute towards in making sure that we build an inclusive economy? It's one thing to give women access or women opportunities in leadership, give women opportunities in ownership of companies, but it's another thing to transform the actual economy and make sure that the general public is included. is actually able to benefit from that. So those are the things that drive my everyday interaction. And I would really like, I'm working on trying to build up a story that can develop an instrument or a vehicle that can drive these initiatives and make sure that all of these aspirations and these initiatives I have in my head are actually coming to fruition, and we can actually get into things that are implementable. So I'm inspired when I work with a group of people, a group of women who are very motivated, who are very driven and trying to build different parts of the industries and making big contributions. This for me means that as we gather together, we try and find solutions for the general public. We give each other opportunities, we support each other. And that for me then means that whatever that we do, it's there to benefit another woman.
I note from your portfolio that you are on a number of boards and have been previously. Let's talk about women occupying seats at the table in terms of board governance. What would your recommendations be? How do we increase that representation across corporates and across companies?
That's a very interesting point, and thank you for that question. One of my ethos is that you remain, I know this, we say this quite a lot, but you remain authentic to yourself. You keep your voice. It's one thing to try to learn the environment, but it's another thing to get to an environment and lose yourself and try to fit in, because then you don't give that very table the benefit of diversity, diverse thinking, the diverse knowledge and experience that is so desired by various boards. The reason why we look at youth, the reason why we look at different genders, people from different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, it's so that we can change the thinking. We can improve things. We can improve the environment when you bring in those diverse type of thinking in the room. So women, when we look at women in the room, I think we tend to have what we call the imposter syndrome when we get into these environments. And as women, you may not know this, Dr. Andy, but as women, we always have this thing around pull head down syndrome, that when women get into high positions, we don't support each other and all sorts of crazy things. But when you get to that level, then you realize that it's not a lot about not wanting to support the other group. It's more about you yourself having the confidence that you belong there. And if you have that imposter syndrome that keeps saying to you, maybe someone is going to catch me out, that I actually don't have the right qualification, I don't have the right credentials to be actually sitting on this chair. So when you land on that seat, the first thing I did when I landed my